Today's video is going to involve a certain topic which I wanted to discuss or just make a video about for quite a few years actually, and it has come up again as a topic of discussion. The fact that Batman killing is somehow wrong, and I would like to present to you why Batman has always killed, and it doesn't really matter whether he has killed people or not, but rather the fact that has he ever intentionally killed any person that he ever wanted to or had a desire to kill? And to start things off, I would just like to give you a bit of an introduction when it comes to Batman and Batman killing or not killing. This issue, I think most came out or was a topic of contention when Batman v Superman came out in 2016. And I even remember Kevin Conroy, who of course was the voice of the character of Batman in the animated series and even the Batman games, the Arkham games. He was interviewed and he even said that this movie got Batman wrong. And then again, to just jump off from that point, the fact or the sentence that Batman never kills is an objectively wrong fact, and hopefully in the following discussion I can give you convincing points that actually prove that these statements is absolutely false. And to just give you a bit of a jumping on point, just using the previous movie iterations of the character, Batman has always killed people. Even like the most favored Batman movie out of all of the Batman movies that we have had so far is of course The Dark Knight, and at the end he blatantly kills Harvey Dent. You know, if we just remove the context, he basically kills Harvey Dent at the end of the movie, but nobody cares about it because, I don't know. But an important point would be to establish what Batman actually is as a character, because in those Nolan movies he's rather presented as an anti-hero or even as just a blatant hero, where in fact the character dresses up in a black costume, he beats up guys with his own fists. He is basically he's closer to being a villain than a hero, and I would consider him to be an anti-villain type of character. But what he is in his universe is he's actually a vigilante. And just giving you another example of this, one of the quotes that always comes to my mind is, "With great power comes great responsibility." And in the case of Batman, I think it's doubly true because he is a guy who is at the peak of what a human can be. He's at the top of his game, and I feel like with him, this is just doubly true. And one of the most important aspects of jumping up to the Batman v Superman version of Batman is that his enemies basically upped their game. Now they wield guns and grenades, and the question is, when it comes to that, is what do you really expect a human being, which Batman actually is a human being, a lot of people forget about it, and we as human beings, we are three-dimensional characters. What do you expect such a living being to do when they throw grenades at him and shoot at him with guns? Even though Batman never actually starts a fight with the intent of killing those thugs, but they force his hand in the matter. No matter what, he is backed into a corner basically when it comes to either him being the victim or the guys are being the victim who shoot at him and throw grenades at him. And another important aspect would be to consider the fact that killing people is not the same as murdering people in general. As in the case of Batman, it is rather considered manslaughter. Some people would call this semantics, but truth to be told, it is incredibly important, since you accidentally hitting a dog with your car is not the same thing as you intentionally hitting a dog with your car, if that makes any sense to you. And the same applies when it comes to Batman. And as I previously mentioned, he is a human being. He is a living, breathing human being, and therefore he is a three-dimensional character. He has dilemmas, and he faces those questions that we face as simple human beings, as the viewer or the audience. Batman is a guy just like anyone else, and a Batman who never actually kills anybody while he's being the Batman, you know, wielding the great power and the responsibility that he has, even if it is an accident. or whether he wants to murder the Joker, which the Joker absolutely deserves it. There is no question about it that the Joker deserves to be just put down, basically. But a Batman who never actually even considers these things is just a two-dimensional character. It's like when he's faced with a dilemma, he just says no, and this character would not be interesting to the audience, as there is no tension, because you know what answer he's gonna pick no matter what. And one of the biggest examples when it comes to Batman actually murdering the Joker or just murdering people in general would be Batman v Superman and Hush, where in Hush, Batman is on the verge of murdering the Joker because the Joker has messed with him again, and I honestly thought that he is gonna murder him. And the same went for BVS, that you thought that Batman is actually going to murder an innocent being. And the interesting thing about that is in Hush, Batman is actually stopped by his conscience, if you will, in the form of Jim Gordon. And that is the only thing that stops him from actually killing the Joker. It wasn't Batman himself, but basically his consciousness, Jim Gordon. And in BVS, the exact same thing applies, is that something stops Batman, and it is his consciousness that he has steered off the path. He has sunk into a level. And again, we have to ask the question, is putting people into wheelchairs and being fine with traumatic brain injuries but not killing people, are those things any better than just flat out not killing those people? And even Injustice 2 makes a fun point about this, is that Robin actually asks Batman the same question, that he's not fine with killing, but he is fine with traumatic brain injuries, and Batman just scoffed this off, as I think most of the audience does, because we cannot really deal with this cognitive dissonance. And we have to ask ourselves the question, are these things more moral than just basically not allowing Batman to kill people? I think it is a rather interesting question to ask, which not a lot of people seem to do these days. But what if Batman killing or murdering people is actually used for storytelling purposes, or to show the character progression that he has throughout the whole movie, as it was in BVS. It was played off as him being the villain, and then at the end of the movie he is going to experience his redemption arc, if you will, because throughout the movie he was the villain and he didn't realize that he has become the villain. And I believe that this question depends on the depth and the complexity of the story, as a lot of Batman stories that we have grown up on, like the Batman animated series, even the Arkham games, the Nolan movies, they never really treated killing people as this big of a deal. It was always like this PG-13 version of violence, where it's not really used as a way to demonstrate how bad those things actually are. We are just basically insensitive now to the level of violence because they don't portray the violence as being violent, but it's just a means to an end. But probably the worst example of this cognitive dissonance that I have mentioned before is found in one of the recent Batman games, in Batman Arkham Knight, where basically Batman is basically a military commander at this point. Like, his suit is insanely armored up, he has a Batmobile or a Bat tank, and he is having to fight not manned drones but unmanned drones, of course, because you have to kill those or destroy those drones or tanks, and his Batmobile shoots rubber bullets at the bad guys. A tank which shoots rubber bullets, how dumb does that sound? And the question again, where do you draw the line with these things? It's like, at that point in Arkham Knight, it was so utterly just pathetic that they could not acknowledge, or did not want to acknowledge, Batman killing people. Where even he had a tank, and he was going up against other tanks as well, which were unmanned, of course, because it would have been too difficult to handle that specific aspect of the character. And when it comes to that, I feel like that as his enemies get more vicious, I feel like Batman has to stand up to them and be as vicious and willing to win the fight against them. It doesn't necessarily mean that he has to wield a machine gun, for example, but that just because they use grenades and shoot at him with machine guns, that doesn't mean that he cannot defend himself by just eliminating those guys. I don't see that there is anything wrong with that. It's the survival of the fittest. It's like either me or them. As much as this sucks, that's the way that Batman always has to operate, because they want to kill him. They don't want to capture him, or they don't necessarily want to capture him, but they want to kill him and get him out of the picture. And in closing here, I would just like to reiterate again that Batman has always killed, but he never murdered anybody, as murdering someone implies that there is the intent behind the action itself. And the creative individuals behind such films and materials as Batman v Superman, for example, understood this clearly and pushed the Caped Crusader to its limits, while making the audience question the actions of their hero in order to push the character, and its audience's understanding of it forward. But what do you think about Batman killing or Batman not killing? And is it more about Batman murdering or just killing people in general that you don't necessarily agree with? I would like to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like, as it helps out the channel a great deal. See you in the next one. And until then, remember to keep it insightful.